Hello, my name is William James. I am the host of the Bald Book Geek, and before we get going, I just want to give a shout out to Mountaineer brand beard oil. If you use code BaldBookGeek, you'll get money off your first order. It's products for guys who are follically challenged like myself, want a decent shave, beard products, and many other. Just use code BaldBookGeek, all lowercase, and yeah. Hi, and this is the point where 60% of you switch off. So that's good to know, isn't it? And my microphone is moving on itself. Star Trek, Strange New Worlds is happening, and I want to say this, and I've got a little bit of heat for this, but Star Trek Discovery has not been a particularly great series. The first season started off good, Season 2 had the best cast, Season 3 was a god-awful mess, and what's really getting frustrating is not just disregard for continuity, because apparently this is canon to the original Trek series, and I also think the disregard for Trek history is a bit disrespectful. It acts like diversity and representation are being handled for the first time in Star Trek, and if you think that, then you've never watched Star Trek, or you've watched a clip on YouTube and think you're a fan, so don't come at me. Second, I want to say this, I know Star Trek Enterprise, although a prequel to the original series, does look more advanced, but not to the point where it felt like a natural evolution. You had very naval looking technology, and then it moved to more NASA looking tech, which was the natural evolution of technology. But Discovery and this whole iteration looks more advanced than Next Generation, Voyager and DS9. The computers, it disregard for a lot of continuity and tech, and a lot of stuff that's happened feels a little bit strange. And I get not doing a retro Trek series, but there is a great retro Trek series called Star Trek. I'll link it in the bio. It's phenomenal. Acts as kind of a sequel to the originals. But what I want to say is, Star Trek Strange New Worlds, I'm holding out hope. I love the cast. I really do love the actors. We saw them in Season 2 of Discovery. We saw these great actors, and we saw... I love the guy they've got as Christopher Pike. I think he's brilliant. I'm loving the actress as number one, and I'm loving the new iteration of Spock. Don't get me started on Michael. Michael is a Mary Sue, and I will clarify that one forever. Link that I did a video on it. But this is my thing. If you are going to do this series, which is apparently canon, takes place 10 years before, or was it 10 years before the original series of Star Trek, so before Captain Kirk took over the Enterprise, how are you going to explain this weird continuity blips? Visually, I get it. I can deal with a visual reboot in places, but the fact that, as I said before, what I've seen so far looks more advanced than Next Generation, which happens a century after, and looks more like something you would see in the Kelvin universe, oddly enough. That's what it reminds me of. But even the Kelvin universe didn't look as advanced as Discovery. But also, I want to add this one into the mix. They need to respect the canon, and lazy writing is the reason Discovery jumped ahead 1,000 years, whatever it is, and seems to have just left plot holes. But lazy canon, lazy disregard for it, and just wanting to reboot it, which I don't agree with. You don't need to reboot it. If you're saying this is canon, stick to the canon. The advantage to Pike, there isn't a huge amount of stuff, and some of the books and the audio dramas are dubious with canon anyway, so you can kind of disregard those. Most of the books you can actually disregard. There aren't many canon Star Trek novels. I think there's maybe 5 that I know of. But please don't screw this up. We don't want Discovery again. We want Star Trek. I think the issues that Discovery had as a whole is the disregard for canon, but canon seems to be meaningless to a lot of people right now. After the Doctor Who's the Timeless Child, I haven't quite forgiven them for that. But, you know, if you want to ignore canon, be brave enough to reboot it or do a separate universe. Don't screw up or disregard the original. I'm worried that this will have the fan fiction vibe that Discovery has. Like the secret human adopted sister of Spock, just out of nowhere, who is an unlikable Mary Sue, who, I mean, it also suffers from stunted writing. By now we should know all these characters, and none of these characters, bar Michael, are getting any screen time. And I'm worried that's what's going to happen with Strange New Worlds. I think it needs to go back to the classic exploration formula of Star Trek. I think it needs to go back to that style. It needs to go back to the sense of wonder and enjoyment. Discovery's had quite a dark dystopian vibe, which doesn't gel well with a lot of the Star Trek canon anyway. The Star Trek utopia is being portrayed as a dystopia, and there's a fundamental disconnection there. I think, for me as someone who does write, and so also a massive Star Trek fan, once you start veering into fanfic territory, there is a problem. And to reiterate a point from the beginning, is that when you do anything, you have to know the source material. And like I said, Discovery treats all of this stuff, diversity and representation, as new. Like, has anyone not watched Star Trek before? Has anyone not seen Next Generation? Has anyone not seen one of the first, if not the first, interracial kiss on television in the original series? That was controversial to the point the BBC had to be persuaded to show it. They also prepared a version without it. Star Trek Discovery is lazy, and I'm worried that the laziness is going to trickle in to Strange New Worlds. I'm loving Picard. The fact that it felt like it was bringing everything full circle and picking up the plot points where Voyager left off is a good thing. And hopefully we'll get some continuing plot points for Series 2. But at this point, I will say, don't screw this one up. Don't mess up Star Trek again with another Discovery. We want Star Trek, not that weird mess. And I think I've said this in another video. Season 1 of Discovery had the biggest budget and actually had some really good ideas. I loved Captain Gabriel. Brilliant. Season 2 had the best cast, Christopher Pike, and brought that in. Season 3 is fan fiction. Fan service fan fiction that kind of made me cringe in elements. Like, just stop it. Stop it. There were certain scenes and certain moments that just made me go, ew, this is uncomfortable. And just forgetting its plot point to going to the future, the plot holes, the disconnect between that, the no emotional consequences, and basically being, this is the Michael Burnham show featuring Star Trek. And that's lazy. If you aren't going to flesh out all these other great characters and treating Saru like shit, who is a great character, by the way, still one of my favourites, despite the really creepy costume. There is a way to do this and still keep it canon. There is a way to do this and create something respectful and interesting, not glorified fan fiction that I think a 15-year-old wrote on fanfic.net.